Hey guys, I wanted to show you another game from the tournament that I played this last weekend. It was a G40 event, and this was the game one, and I got the Noteboom. It came from a an English move order, 1c4. But here we've transposed, and White played Bishop to G5, which is not covered in the repertoire, and this threw me for a bit of a loop. Um, I didn't. This is not something I faced before yet, and it's not actually covered in the course. And I kind of struggled to figure out exactly what the best plan was, because we know in the standard lines where they go like e3, we go b5, they go a4, and we come here and we defend the pawn this way because of the pen. He can't capture. We're going to take here. And so after bishop g5, I was like, okay, how do I get this? And I came up with queen c7, which is the second best move, I suppose, is what the computer is saying. But the sort of the more natural and the better move is actually just to play bishop. Oops, sorry, not here, but just to play bishop to e7. And I didn't like this because I was like, oh no, I need my bishop. My bishop's got to go here, and if I let him exchange and then I take back with the knight, well, one, I thought the knight looked kind of weird on e7, and I didn't think I really wanted the queen there necessarily, even though in the game the queen ended up there anyway. But it turns out this is the best way, and we do have a way to still maintain the pawn even in this line. He can capture. We do take back with a knight. And I've got a couple options. He can go e3, a4, or he can go e4 directly. So we'll look at a4. And against a4 or e3, they're going to be the same. We can just play knight to d5. And similar to how after they capture, we take bishop takes, well, now I'm going to do the same thing with the knight. So he goes e3, or he could have gone e4, at which point we would have just captured. And we go b5, he takes, and we take. And then he comes here, and ta-da! We've held our pawn, and we got rid of his dark squared bishop. We didn't even have to give up the bishop pair to hold the pawn in this line. So this works great. He gets e4, no problem. We go here, he takes, and now we just go bishop to d7, and we're going to hold the pawn this way. So giving up the bishop in no way means that we don't get to hold on to our extra pawn, which is what I was afraid of. Technically, there is a way that he can stop us from holding the pawn, and that's if after a4 directly doesn't go e3 or e4, but instead goes a5. And the point is that when you play b5, he's going to take en passant, and we don't really have anything to do against that. But we can go c5 immediately. He captures, and now we can play knight takes c3. He can opt trade queens. We'll capture. He takes here, and now we just go knight to d7. We'll collect this pawn. He's going to get this one back. So he'll play e3. We'll take this guy. He'll take this guy. And we have this backwards pawn to play against. We have a better pawn structure. Yes, we gave up the right to castle, but we don't really need a castle anymore. There's been a lot of pieces come off the board, and maybe we want our king sitting on c7 even. We go bishop d7. Maybe we're going to come out to here. We have nice pressure along this line. Like I said, maybe the king will set on c7. Maybe it'll go to e7, actually. e7, free up this for the rook. And we have a good game. And, we're going to immediately start making pressure and threats against the c3 pawn. So definitely this bishop e7, and just knowing that you have a couple ideas in your pocket with knight d5 and capturing here in order to play b5, or you also have this bishop d7. And we should be happy in these lines because we didn't give white the bishop pair and some of the other things that they get in the more main lines. So I chose queen to c7, and he played e3, and of course I go b5 because I'm still trying to get into the familiar territory. Bishop e2, I played knight d7, he castles, and I go bishop b7. Better was probably just to play knight f6. I don't need bishop d7, b7 just yet. There's zero pressure against this guy. It's nice to get the knight out. It stops him from playing e4 because maybe we go b4. He chose a4 now. We can still go knight to d5. And again, if he tries to capture here, we're just going to take this guy. Similar to the game. I just wasn't aware of this idea of going knight d5, taking on c3, and protecting our b-pawn that way. So that should be a takeaway from this game, is that you have this idea of going knight e7 or f6 to d5, capturing the knight, and then holding the pawn that way. Knight takes d5, e takes d5 is the way we want to go. And we have a huge mess of pawns on the queen side. And if he ever tries to play e4, we can, of course, capture, and then we get a d4 target to play against. And we also, I mean, we already have 5 pawns versus 3 pawns on the queen side with excellent chances to produce a passer. I went ahead and played bishop b7, just going for sort of standard queenside development here, still thinking that perhaps I'll put the bishop out here. He chose bishop to f4, and here I went ahead and acquiesced to a trade of the bishops, because after a4 now, I already have the bishop on b7, I can just play a6, no big deal. He captures, he went knight e4, I dropped the queen back to e7. My thinking was that I want to play c5 to open this bishop up. And I don't want the queen on c7 because maybe he'll play b3 and we have to take, and then my queen will be sitting on an open file. So from e7, it supports not only c5, but also e5, which is something that did happen in the game, but not in the best way. We'll get into that. I played queen c2, and now I brought out the knight. He captured, I capture, everybody's happy. He played a4, and I played a6. Totally unnecessary. Why do I got to play a6? I don't really need to play a6 at all. He plays here, I can take, and there's no pressure here. I mean, after b3, I could maybe play a6, but it was better just to castle. And then if he goes like he did in the game, later on he goes knight d2, his idea is to come here. Well, this is great. We'll just play a5 now. We don't need to play a6. We're going to play a5 and b4. And that's going to help us play c5, because if we play b4, well, there's no more threats to be captured. So this looks great. He plays bishop f3. We can just play rook to fc8. And we're ready to start thinking about playing b4. He can capture. Notice our queen is defending here. We just take a second here. He plays b3. No problem. We take it. He takes back. And we go here. And it looks like he gets a super strong hold on the c5 square. And this guy's really backwards. But this is where e5 is going to come into play. We can play knight to d5 first. That blunts this bishop. No longer a problem. And we would be super happy if he were to take it, because then we'll just take back with the c-pawn probably. And we have this open file to play against. And we can play e5 later to undermine the knight. Rook fc1, just trying to, if he tries to belligerently continue putting pressure on this direction, now e5. And again, he can't capture because then this knight becomes unstable. He doesn't want to capture here because, well, we'll be able to take and we're defending the pawn again. And then we'll probably end up taking here, or maybe even sometimes playing e4. But this would have been a great way to go. This idea of playing a5 and b4 to alleviate the pressure away from b5 so that you can play c5, this is some sort of weird bingo game I'm playing here with all these numbers, is a cool idea and something that I'm taking away from this game, and I hope you guys do too. Instead, I played a6, and he went b3. I captured, he took, and I castled. Everything is great. I still should go for this a5, b4 idea probably, because it's really hard to play c5 with this pressure against b5. I just can't do it because he's got too many pieces attacking the b5 square. He played knight to d2, and I wanted to play e5 directly, and I should have. The idea of e5 is I want to get rid of this d4 pawn so that I can play c5. And so e5 immediately, it makes much more sense. He captures, I take back, maybe he goes f3. No problem, I just drop right back. And I defend this guy. I'm going to play b4, say rook fc1. I defend it. He comes here, and he's trying to prevent b4. No problem, I just bring the rook in. He's got to cover this guy somehow, say rook c2. And I can play rook to b8, and I'm going to get some tactics in now. So say he just tries to really put pressure on the b5. Well, now I can go c5, and he can't actually capture it. If he does, I'll take here. And then after knight takes, then I capture this guy, and this is great. I got c5 and b5. These pawns abreast are a lot harder to get a blockade against than when they're stuck on c6 and b5, as we're going to see in the game. Instead, that's not the way things went. He played knight d2. I brought the rook in because I was like, oh, I'll play e5, and if he captures, then voila, I get the rook. Or get the rook to the second rank, and this looks great. So he played here, and I went ahead with my idea. He took, and I captured. And this looks optically pretty great because I've got a rook on the second rank. That's awesome, right? Except for it really has nothing to do with the position. I have extra pawns on the queen side. I should be trying to push them. And when I want to push them, this rook should be behind the pawns, not over here sort of loosely hanging and in sort of an awkward place. He takes, I take, and now my queen is not also. I need it to defend the bishop, and this is awkward. I need it to defend this whole diagonal actually, so that I can shuffle these pawns up the board. He did choose to take. He took. He went here, and I of course got a capture, and he played queen to a3, which is an obnoxious move. He's setting up this blockade on these dark squares, which it turns out is really hard to break. Borderline impossible. I played queen to d8. He goes rook a1. I brought the bishop out of the way. He comes here, again, controlling this. He's not letting this guy move because he's got pressure here, and he's just covering the square. I played rook d7, and he went queen to c5, and then I just took a moment for h6. I was really kind of hoping that there would be some sort of backbreak thing. Like I thought maybe he'll play rook a6 and then waha. But it didn't happen. He played h3 and then that went away. And so I'm struggling. I'm like, how do I play c5? If I can't play c5 and get those pawns rolling, I don't know how I'm going to win this game. I played queen to e7. I want to trade. He's like, no, that's not going to happen. And again, I could play c5 now, and he's going to capture. That's no good. So I played queen to d8, and I decided to put my queen here, and I had this idea that I would play rook to e7 and try to play here and shove the queen off of c5, and then I wanted to try to get the queen to b6 and then play c5. But that's really difficult to accomplish. He plays rook to a7, and now this idea just totally fails. So if I try rook e7, say he just plays a random move, and I go rook e5, well, whoops, and the queen is overloaded, and I just lose a piece. So that idea, it just doesn't work. So I played rook to d8 because I had a different idea. He went here, and I played this guy, and I expected that he would just take, and the idea was to come here, and then I was going to put the queen on b7, and now I'm going to move this guy, and I thought I would distract the queen away and then get to play queen b6, bishop b7, but it turns out that's rubbish. The computer just sort of laughs at that idea. He goes h4, I go b4, which would be my plan. He can just go to d6. It doesn't matter, or not d6. He can also probably just shuffle the bishop. I'll go b3. He can give a check. I gotta come here. He can give another check. Notice now he's got pressure here. I still can't play c5. And he's covering the queening square, and his queen is covering this guy. I got to play g6. He can play h5. I go b2. Still can't play c5. This guy's looking scary, but it's nothing. He captures. I capture. He plays king g2. And what am I going to do? How do I break this? I can't move the queen away from this square, away from the bishop, because I'm just going to lose it. I mean, I could play c5. He could capture, but then, I make a queen, and ooh, sorry, I don't make a queen yet. I play here, and then I make a queen, maybe. I don't know. The computer gives king h2, I guess. I'll make a queen. But this is nothing. This is going to be similar to if I just made a queen immediately, which is he takes it, I take it, he takes here, and it's a queen and pawn, both of us super exposed queens, or kings. This is going to be a draw. So after I played rook a8, though, I got super lucky because I suppose that understanding that he has this blockade is perhaps a bit tricky. But he went for tactics and captured on b7, which at first shocked me because I didn't see it. And I was immediately thought that I had blundered quite badly because I thought, oh, I'll take here and he'll come here and I've got to move the queen somewhere, say, I don't know, here, and he'll capture, and then he'll take this guy. And like, oh, now I'm not, I was just up a pawn, now I'm down a pawn, is what, but I got lucky because after queen takes b7, he comes here, I have rook c8, and I'm just going to go up material. I mean, he played here, I took here, and then he resigned. It's no better if he takes this way, because or sorry, not that way, but if he captures this way, it's bad. Captures this way, it's bad. Captures here, this is a super easy ending. This is cake. There is no blockade, and I have an exchange and an outside passer. The game's over. A couple things here. One is recognizing that this bishop e7 against bishop g5, and probably in some other cases too, but this idea that you can bring the knight to d5 and capture the knight that way to alleviate pressure against b4, that's a big takeaway. That's something that we definitely want to remember. And the other things that we want to remember are castles, and then this idea of a5 and going to b4 to alleviate pressure away from the b5 pawn is another pretty key idea that came up a couple different situations in this. And then lastly, this idea of playing e5 directly and not trying to get your rook to the second rank, because what's it doing there? Which is nothing. It belongs behind the pawns, helping your pawns scuttle up the board. That's where our play is. So anyhow, I hope that this was interesting and you guys enjoyed this and you took something away from it. If you want to try to get these kinds of games in when you play, check out the ChessGoals repertoire. It's really cool. I'm really enjoying it. I'm getting a lot of good games, and wish you guys the best. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.